All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to break down Nuggets Clippers. I'll be doing another couple of podcasts as well on Thursday and Friday, so this is only going to be the first of a couple preview episodes. Figure I want to try to get you guys as much content as possible and make sure that I'm taking care of the audience here. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see how it looks. This first episode will be kind of my deep dive initial thoughts. Last time I talked to Jeff Morton on the episode, and we were able to kind of give our initial thoughts on a variety of things over the course of about 10 or 15 minutes. This is going to be a little bit deeper. Going to try to take some questions as well. There will be one of these episodes that I'm going to do will be a Q&A. Not this one, but either way, ask your questions in the comments, and I will do my best to answer those as well. But yeah, we're going to talk about Nuggets Clippers. We're going to talk about the pivotal players, the Clippers' top three scorers, Jokic and Murray versus Chris Dunn and Ivica Zubac. I think that that's going to be a very interesting battle between those guys. Should be very interesting. So give me your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below, including who you think wins and in how many games. Just for full posterity, the Clippers are favored in this series. It's a 4-5 matchup. Denver plays an extra home game, but the Clippers are favored. I was just looking at the odds on FanDuel, and the Nuggets are plus 100 to win the series, while the Clippers are like minus 116, something like that. So it's pretty close to a pick 'em, but kind of interesting to see that the odds are as split as they are. The Clippers have better regular season numbers, and they got Kawhi Leonard back, and the Nuggets are 3 games off of firing their head coach and GM. So it's kind of understandable why it's that way. But I also kind of feel like public perception has definitely flipped a little bit far away from the team that has Nikola Jokic. That seems off to me. But hey, who knows? We'll find out. We will see what happens in this one, but gonna be fascinating to see how they handle it. On milehighsports.com, I just put out an article that effectively has 3 different reasons and 3 different categories of where the Nuggets are going to be tested early and often. The first is that the 3 scoring creators that they have are each guys that have had success against Denver in the past. James Harden, Norman Powell, and Kawhi Leonard. Denver obviously didn't play Kawhi Leonard at all this season. In each of the 4 matchups, I believe they faced Harden and Powell, never had to face Kawhi. And it's a new dynamic that the Clippers have. And the fact is that Kawhi has been fantastic in the last few games. Since March 1st, he's averaging 36 minutes a game and averaging 25.7 points, 7.1 rebounds, 3.4 assists, shooting over 52% from the field, nearly 43% from 3, and 83% from the line. He looks a lot like Kawhi. He's also averaging 1.9 steals per game, still a player that I think won a Defensive Player of the Year trophy and has been pretty good at his job, especially in a playoff environment. Obviously, he hasn't finished a season in a while. It feels like he gets injured in the playoffs, and Nuggets fans are going to kind of be waiting for the other foot to drop, but NBA fans, same thing. Clippers fans have to hope that Kawhi stays healthy throughout this entire thing. If he does, Denver's going to have to find ways to contend with him. Aaron Gordon is, in theory, one of those guys that can really help. He is the right physicality, the right amount of length and athleticism, somebody who can cut off certain driving angles and also not let Kawhi get to 8 feet, as opposed to a lot of the shots that he likes to take from 12 to 14 feet or further. That's where Kawhi struggles at times, is if he cannot get to the easier mid-range pull-ups, the easier twos, and you force him to take the tougher ones, overall the numbers are going to go down. unless he's just on one for that game, and in which case nobody's going to stop him because he's Kawhi Leonard. But in theory, that's a matchup that Denver should be okay with. Him attacking in that general vicinity. If Aaron Gordon is going to step up and play a strong defensive series, Denver's going to have to live with Kawhi averaging about 25 points per game. If it's on 55% from the field, that's a little bit different from 50% from the field, which is a little bit different from 45% from the field, which is a little bit different from lower than that. So going to be interesting to see how he can handle it and how the Nuggets can handle James Harden and Christian Brown, or James Harden with Christian Brown and Norman Powell with likely Jamal Murray. That would be my expectation. In the regular season, Jamal Murray wasn't exactly taking this matchup like super seriously from the standpoint of I need to close out on Norman Powell and be as tight to him as possible. Same thing with Harden when he got switched on to him. Christian Brown's still pretty early on in the season. I think he has learned a lot defensively over the course of this year. But early when he was playing the Clippers, still learning some stuff, still learning the tricks of the trade, not necessarily knowing exactly how to impact the series. Although he did some good things. And James Harden, for all of the great things that he did, and for as much as Denver over-indexes on Harden's skill set, 9.3 assists per game compared to 6.5 turnovers per game. 6.5 turnovers across 4 separate games is a really high turnover percentage. And that's where you can get Harden in trouble. He is generally pretty good at taking care of the basketball. But once he gets tired out, once he gets sloppy, that's when you as a team can really excel. And Christian's going to be paramount with that. I'm not sure if Christian is the right player to be matching up with Harden throughout the series. It wouldn't surprise me if Peyton Watson was a guy that they tried to break out there. Somebody who's long, athletic, who can get his hands into the passing lanes a little bit better than Christian can. And then somebody who can chase down a little bit, as long as Peyton Watson is not able, like he avoids foul trouble in those situations and avoids sending James Harden to the free throw line, that should be pretty good. But this is James Harden that we're talking about. He's going to get to the free throw line. So I think the other factor here is that Harden is just such a good passer that him hitting Ivica Zubac on the short roll probably going to be an issue for Denver. It's probably going to be something that they have to deal with. Is Aaron Gordon going to be the rotating low man? Is it Michael Porter Jr.? Is it Jamal Murray? Like, these guys are going to have to try to slow down a big 7-footer rolling down Main Street. And if they are capable of doing that, then great. If not, then Zoo is probably going to have a couple 20-point games in there. And Denver wants to avoid that as much as they can, of course. So the weak link among the scorers is probably Powell. He has been fantastic pretty much all season for the Clippers, but he's taken a little bit of a step back with Kawhi coming in. I do think that Denver, they're going to be running a risk here because if you over-index on Kawhi, if you over-index on Harden, if you rotate extra hard onto Zubac, it wouldn't surprise me if they leave Powell open and he gets them 30 points. He gets them 35 points, a situation like that. And those margins are going to be important in this kind of series. So going to be interesting to see how Denver matches up with all three of their top scorers at the same time. And that's something that I'm thinking about pretty consistently. Royce says, I think Russ is going to be important in this matchup. Russ can guard Harden well. Agreed. Like, he's going to be out there. And when Russ is out there, they are going to try, like, Denver is going to try to keep him focused on slowing down Harden. He's not going to be a Kawhi defender or anything like that. Although maybe he could gamble for some steals, and anytime that Kawhi has to put the ball on the floor, then maybe Russ is going to try to take it away. But I just think that that's a little bit more dangerous. With Harden, there are so many dribbles, and Russ is pretty athletic still at this stage. They should be able to match up with that. Rare Loyalty says Harden is going to cook Watson and Brown. Denver held him to 39% from the field and 33% from three in the regular season. I'm not saying that they're going to do exactly that, but this was the same like Harden. He wasn't trying any less hard. And the Nuggets are still going to be like, they're still going to, especially when it's a pick and roll opportunity, they're still going to hedge most of the time with Jokic at a high drop position, trying to force Harden to pass. So I don't think that Harden is going to have a whole bunch of high point value series. But maybe that's wrong. And maybe he will. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to really hunt out guys like Michael Porter, Jamal Murray, maybe Aaron Gordon on a switch. Gordon isn't necessarily awesome guarding Harden straight up. And then anytime that somebody off the bench comes in, like hypothetically Jalen Pickett, for example, if Pickett plays, then he's not going to be able to contest a lot of shots. So do you get under Harden a little bit and commit a 3-shot foul? Is Christian going to commit 3-shot fouls? That's a big deal. So we'll see what happens, but I'm curious to see how Denver handles this matchup. This is a disciplined matchup. This is one where the Clippers are going to try to trick you, James Harden especially. How do you handle it discipline-wise, and how, like, technically sound? Can you be a good technical defender, somebody that stays focused and does not allow the brain to wander too far in a situation like this? It's tough. It's tough for any team, but that's what makes a good playoff team, is the ones that are able to lock in these situations. So I'm curious to see how they handle it. Next, let's go over when we'll do when the Nuggets have the ball next segment. I think that Michael Porter Jr. is going to be tested immediately in this series. Harden is going to try to get him to switch pretty consistently. My belief is that in segments of the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, the most likely outcome for every single possession, every single one, is that Chris Dunn, being guarded by Michael Porter Jr., sets a ball screen up top for James Harden, and Porter is forced to switch onto James Harden, and then they run pick and roll with Porter and Jokic guarding Harden and Zubac. That just wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that's exactly where this series is going to go initially. And it's going to be on Porter. It's going to be on Jokic. It's going to be on the help defense to try to mitigate that damage as much as possible. Because what the Clippers are obviously trying to do is they're trying to play Michael Porter off the floor. And whether they're trying to get him switched on to Powell, whether they're trying to get him switched on to Harden, or whether they're trying to get him switched on to Kawhi, I don't know what's going to happen exactly. But I feel like that would be the direction that I would go if I were them. And then if you play Porter off the floor, you are taking one offensive option, one floor spacer, one extra guy that you have to worry about off the floor. And then if Denver is in that position and they're trying to switch some things up, you're suddenly running a crunch time lineup that has Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook, Aaron Gordon in it. And the spacing there just isn't that dangerous. And Denver has to be operating from a disadvantage at that point. So that is something that Nuggets fans will have to consider. And it's something that the Nuggets will have to consider. Porter's going to have to be good on the defensive end, or he's going to have to be so good on the offensive end, making shots, taking attention, running in transition, offensive rebound putbacks, things like that. He's going to have to be so good in those situations that it just doesn't matter that he's being hunted. Like, if he gives up an extra bucket that somebody like Murray wouldn't give up, or certainly Christian Brown or Aaron Gordon wouldn't give up, whatever, then that's okay, as long as he's getting back the buckets on the other end and helping out Denver. or his spacing is just allowing everybody else to be very consistent, to get the stuff that they're supposed to get. So we're going to find out very quickly whether Porter can play and be involved in this series. I have both positive and negative thoughts about that because there's going to be so many opportunities where I can just envision in my mind that Harden waves off Zubats and is like, no, I've got Michael Porter on a switch. This is my time to shine. And if there's one thing that Porter has done pretty well, it's defend in isolation. So can he guard James Harden in isolation? That's not necessarily a great opportunity for Denver, but is that a pivot that Denver can win? I think so, but it's a lot of pressure on Porter, of course. And if Denver can avoid foul trouble in that situation, Harden step back threes in that situation, they will win games. So we're going to find out. We're going to see. But tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Denver's pivotal players outside of Michael Porter, as well as the Jokic Murray two-man game versus Chris Dunn and Ivica Zubac. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really quickly, everybody, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage. They have been fantastic to us here at Mile High Sports, and they want us to let you know that they are a great mortgage company that you can trust. Hundreds of happy customers with a 5-star reputation. SCL Mortgage specializes in loans for the self-employed. If you need a down payment, if you need a second mortgage, if you need kind of special assistance, SCL specializes in assisting people with unusual financing needs as well as those with great credit. So make sure to give them a call, 303-790-2222, or visit myspecialmortgage.com. All right, let's get back into this Nuggets Clippers. There's a lot of players that you can identify on the offensive end for Denver as the key, whether that's Porter shining in these situations. Christian Brown is going to be a main factor for Denver as the Jokic Murray two-man game goes. Everybody understands what Aaron Gordon's going to do in those situations. He's either going to spot up at the three and get some kickouts and get some opportunities, or he's going to be in the dunker spot. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him, whether he's being guarded by Kawhi Leonard and Kawhi has to rotate over, whether it's going to be him spotting up and shooting over somebody after the defense collapses. Going to be interesting to see how he can handle that. But I do think that Christian Brown, that's one that you don't necessarily look at James Harden and Norman Powell as guys that are going to be running and sprinting back in transition, you know? Like Chris Dunn's going to be working his tail off guarding Jamal Murray, as will, by the way, Derrick Jones Jr. off the bench. Derrick Jones has had success against Murray in the past. Will he have success this year? I don't know, but he has the length. He has the athleticism. He can do a lot of different things, kind of closing off airspace. And it just wouldn't surprise me if Chris Dunn struggles in this series defensively against Murray. And because the one thing about Chris Dunn, he's a fantastic defender. There's no doubt about that. He is extremely technically sound. He's got the length. Not as much athleticism, but he certainly has long arms that can poke away the ball. He's always had high steal rates, things like that. But matching up with Murray, you need to be physical, and he's not as physical of a defender as others. And if you're not physical, then you need to have the athleticism to kind of make up for it. Derrick Jones Jr. has that, and so he's going to play off the bench, and it would not surprise me in the slightest if he closed some games for them. If he was a guy that played a little bit more than Chris Dunn at various points in the series, maybe they even switched the starting matchup because Murray's going to be out there and They don't want him to get going because he's in a situation where he's figured out Chris Dunn a little bit. So I think that it's going to be fascinating in that perspective. But back to Brown. He will be guarded by James Harden or Norman Powell pretty much for the entire time. They are not going to want Chris Dunn and Derek Jones to be guarding him because those guys are going to be saving their efforts to try to take away the Jokic Murray two-man game. That's what I would do. And so you also want to have your guys hide a little bit, and it's a little bit easier to hide against Christian Brown because he's not going to break you down. He's not going to shoot off the dribble a ton. He's not going to score in isolation on you over and over and over again. He's going to get Jokic involved, and that's great. But he's also going to be kind of dared to shoot threes and dared to drive and things like that. And I think he will. And how successful he is, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think on the back cuts, I think in running in transition, I think the hustle plays when Christian Brown sets screens and then rolls to the rim off the short roll when setting screens for Jokic, he's going to get involved in that. And it's going to get Harden or Powell involved as well. And I think that that's going to be my colleague over at Locked On, Matt Moore. He seems to think that Brown is going to be in line for a big series. And when I think of big series, I think of okay, suddenly he's averaging 18 points per game, 19 points per game. He's an option that they go to on a consistent basis. And that's something that the Clippers will have to adjust to in all likelihood. So can Denver win a game or two just based off of the efforts of Jokic and Christian Brown in the two-man game? It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they won at least one. So that'll be something. That'll be something to think about. Russell Westbrook, of course. Peyton Watson, of course. Talked about those two guys. Can Denver trust them offensively in this series? They're going to be called upon defensively. What does Russ do on the offensive end? Is he going to be a lower mistake player? Is he going to be a high mistake player? Can the Nuggets live with those mistakes? That's a big balance for what they're going to have to do in this series. Can Peyton Watson be trusted on the offensive end? Is he a guy that they can go to without him making mistakes? That I think is a pretty big deal as well, because you would love to have Peyton Watson out there to be able to switch between guarding Norman Powell, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, even rotating over on Ivica Zubac. That would be great. So we will see what Peyton Watson's minutes look like. The initial rotation preview that I had him at 14, 15 minutes per game. That seems too low. Seems like they would need to play him more. You had Michael Porter at 32 minutes per game. Maybe that's too high. So we'll have to kind of decide what that looks like going forward. Outside of those kind of top 7 guys, is Zeke Naji going to play? Is Jalen Pickett going to play? Is Julian Strawther going to play? Is DeAndre Jordan going to play? Which of those 4 guys do you think is the most likely to kind of step in and play a role? I do not think it's DeAndre Jordan. I would be shocked kind of if it was. Just because they are going to play the Clippers. They're going to play Nicholas Batum. They're going to play Ben Simmons. They're going to play smaller, more athletic forwards at the small ball center position. It's not necessarily the way that I would think Jordan kind of runs his stuff. So is Zeke a better option? If there is no backup center on the other side, could Zeke be the right backup center for Denver? Is he going to be trusted? I don't know. Is Jalen Pickett going to be trusted? See, I mean, in theory, he's a guy that they can go to for low mistake opportunities. But he's also a guy that I think will be hunted at times on the defensive end. Harden will get him. Norman Powell will go at him. Kawhi will certainly try to go at him. So can they avoid that? And can Pickett kind of stay low mistake in those situations? I don't know. And then Julian Strawther, if Denver needs the spacing, would be nice to have a spacer. But I don't think that Julian can really play He even more so than Jalen is going to get hunted on the defensive end by a lot of those guys. They know exactly what the game plan is when he is out there. It's get him involved in the action, and Julian is going to foul. So I would be shocked if Julian played in this series. Maybe there's a future series if they're lucky enough that he could play in. Kind of have my doubts. So we'll see. We will see what the rotation looks like. I have plenty of thoughts on, like, based off of how the Clippers run some things, like how Denver can react to that. TTESO says, "What about Darius Arch?" That's funny. That is that is not happening. Darius played 15 games this year, 16 games. I can't imagine that he gets up off the bench. Same thing, by the way, with Hunter Tyson. Same thing, by the way, with Lako Chanchar. I would just be shocked if any of those three guys got up off the bench this game or this series. If they do, then sorry. But I do not believe that it will happen. Okay. Final thing here before I got to go, because the Nuggets are having practice at noon, or they're having practice pretty close to now, but I have to be there at noon. The Jokic Murray two-man game is, of course, the staple for which the Nuggets do everything. Chris Dunn, Ivica Zubac, those guys are the top two defenders in the starting lineup for the Clippers. So much about, in general, like a lot of these situations, is how much space the opposing team can take away from the Jokic Murray two-man game with just two players. Because if Jokic and Murray are running their stuff, let's say Jokic goes into the post and then he kicks it back out to Murray, and then they run two-man action, and then it's a pick and pop, and then Jokic drives after that, and it's just how scrambled do the Clippers or any other defensive team, how scrambled do those teams get in those situations before they have to add help, before they have to send a third person, before they have to shrink the floor entirely. And that's my big concern with this. Can Dunn and Zubac, can they guard Jokic and Murray 2-on-2? I don't think so. But if they did, that would be a big problem for Denver. A big, big problem. Murray he was obviously hurt heading into the last few games of the season. I thought he looked a little, not timid, but just not moving as well as he needed to. And that has to change in this upcoming series for Denver to be great. Murray's going to have to shine in this moment. Let me see, by the way, I'm going to try to pull up something really quick. The Nuggets, their schedule is out. The playoff schedule is out. I'm going to screenshot this really quickly and then throw it up on the screen so that you guys can see. Yeah, pardon me. This is not good video podcasting or good audio podcasting, most certainly. I'm going to throw this up here. This is the schedule. And why this matters for Jokic and Murray is this. Denver plays in Denver on Saturday and Monday. There's only one day break there. Nothing crazy. Then there's 2 days off, and they go to LA. And they face the Clippers on Thursday and then Saturday. And then there's another extra day off on Sunday. And then they play on Tuesday in Denver for Game 5. Then they just fly directly back to the Clippers and play on Thursday. And then it's Saturday after that. So you've got 1 day off, 2 days off, 1 day off, 2 days off, 1 day off, 1 day off. And that's about as little of rest as you can realistically give in a situation like this. Usually in these first round situations, there will be a little bit more time, a little bit more of an extensive kind of rest period. So just wouldn't surprise me if Kawhi kind of wore down in this series and Murray kind of wore down in this series. Anybody else that's dealing with injuries will also probably wear down. So I'm curious to see how Denver handles it, curious to see what they decide to do. But this is going to be a tough one. I wrote about this in the article that I did. This article is going, or this, sorry, this playoff series is the perfect opportunity for Denver. And the reason why I say that, it's not because this is the best matchup. Denver would obviously prefer to play a team like Memphis or a team like, even would they prefer to play Golden State? I don't know. Would they prefer to play Houston? Probably. Clippers are like the second best team in the West right now. They've played like the second best team in the West for the vast majority of the last couple months. So how does Denver respond to that? What do they do? Can they rise to the occasion? The Clippers are not like this physically dominant team, but they are a technically sound team. They're a team that's going to force you to rise to the occasion, and a team that's going to force you to play consistently. Because if you don't play consistently, they're going to go on their own personal runs. You're going to lose the detail, the margin battle, and then you're going to lose the series. And so this is a great opportunity for Denver in the first round. And the reason why I say that is because if Denver does win this series, it'll mean that they got serious. It will mean that they did the things that they were supposed to do to win. But not only that, just going through the process of understanding how to win and what it looks like and going through that together and showing yourselves that you can win in that situation is a big deal. And if you can't do that and you lose, well, then you lost to the Clippers in the first round as a pick 'em. You weren't the favorite because it's a 4-5 matchup and they're also very good. But then you go to the offseason. It's a pretty short offseason, and then you probably make the changes that you have to make in order to become the best version of yourselves next year. Josh Kroenke, in part from the presser that he did on Monday, said that one of the reasons that he fired Malone and Booth was because not only did he see how flat the locker room was, but he thought that they still had chances this year. He thought that they still had something more to give. And we're going to find out really quickly if that is true. If Denver is willing and able to go the extra mile in this series, to do the hustle things, to do the detail things, then they will win this series. If they're willing to do it. They have the talent. That is not the question. Porter can rise to the occasion. Murray can rise to the occasion. Christian, Aaron, Russ, all of these guys can rise to the occasion. Oh, and Denver also has the best player in the world. So, great. It's not all it takes. You're going to need to be connected. You're going to need to communicate. You're going to need to play together. And I'm curious to see whether Denver can or wants to do that. So, we're going to find out together. But folks, for now, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage. Thank you so much for tuning into the show on this Wednesday morning. I'll be back tomorrow, and then I will be back Friday as well. We'll be talking about some different things, probably go over some different scenarios, and then I will make a prediction for this series at the end of the week. Everybody have a good week ongoing. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.